Hello, and welcome to Truth is Knocking Ministries. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how the sun orbits the earth. And I'm going to explain God's truths so they're crystal clear and expose the ridiculous lies of Satan. So, what you have when you look up in the night sky, first of all, what it says in the Bible, that when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, these are lights. Lights that have been placed in the firmament. The firmament is there to separate the waters above from the waters below, and God has placed these lights in the firmament. And then beneath the firmament is the open firmament, and that's where the clouds are and the birds fly. Now, I'm going to the Lord's given me divine revelation, so I'm going to explain, crystal clear how that all works. But first, we're going to expose the false model of the universe that's full of holes and is based on false premise to begin with. They tell you that there's a solar system and there's these galaxies and the universe, and it's just not true. I'm going to start off with, when you look in the sky, you see trillions of sparklies, all these sparklies all over the sky, trillions of sparklies. And it's just like when you go for a walk on a dimly lit night, and there's kind of raining, look at the pavement, and there's like trillions of sparklies all over the pavement, all these sparklies. So you look at the snow sometimes, and the sun's hitting the snow and stuff, you see all these trillions of sparklies. So this is just like a lighting effect. These are lights. And you look in the sky, and you see all these trillions of sparklies. But through the vain imaginations of men and the intentional lies of Satan, they've tried to create this false model of the heavens above, and telling you that there's this planets and a solar system and celestial bodies and a universe and galaxies and all this kind of stuff like that. And none of it's true. There's no proof of any of it. We haven't been in these places. There's no proof of any of it. You see the moon landing is obviously ridiculous and fake, and they just give me this false model of the universe. And then physicists have pointed out, that none of this makes any sense mathematically, or the laws of gravity, because none of it works. So then they create all these rubber stamp theories they have all these holes in their theories, so they create rubber stamp theories to plug their holes. Like they say, there's black holes and dark matter and antimatter and all this stuff like that. And these are just these rubber stamp theories, so they can just stamp, and plug these holes in their theory and say, it couldn't possibly be wrong, so the black holes must exist and this must exist, and they're just the whole thing is full of holes to begin with. It's based on a false premise to begin with, and it's just not true. And so I'm going to explain how it actually works, that I've been shown through divine revelation from the Lord exactly how it works, with no holes and no holes. There's no holes in the truth. It's the truth is the truth. And so when the earth is a sphere and the sun orbits that earth. Now I'm explaining how all that works. When you look at pictures of the moon, there's you can see like some of the constellations in the night sky. You can see them on the surface of the moon. You can see like the Big Dipper, Orion's belt, the two teardrops below Orion's belt. So these are all like right on the surface of the moon, and you can see them, and they're also spread all across the night sky. And they've admitted this, and they've said, it's just being reflected from the night sky onto the surface of the moon, and that's just not true. Because these constellations that are observable on the surface of the moon are in fixed positions. They are completely fixed positions. The moon's supposed to be, the moon's, orbiting around, but these constellations are on fixed positions on the moon's surface. And then they're spread but then they're twirling all around the sky. They're spread all over the sky. So it's like a disco ball in the sky. Just like if you have a disco ball in your bedroom and you have like certain patterns on that disco ball, those are in fixed positions on the disco ball, and then they're twirling around the ceiling around it. That's what they have with the moon and the stars up there. You have like constellations that are fixed on the surface of the moon, and they're twirling around the sky. So it's like a disco ball in the sky. So this is like, the sun is like a projector bulb, and this moon and the stars is like the text on the screen. And the slide in the projector is a circular region around Antarctica. That's the projector slide. So what happens is how the circular region around Antarctica, you have a magnetic field that goes from the South Pole to the North Pole. So that huge magnetic stream, that magnetic beam going from south to north, it takes an imprint of that circular region around Antarctica, all the sediments and the soils and and stuff like that. It goes to the glaciers and the sediments and soils and makes this big, massive imprint, and then it travels from south to north. Now, when that magnetic stream intercepts with the ionosphere surrounds the Earth. When the magnetic stream of the Earth interacts with the ionosphere of the Earth, it turns into visible light. You get this big glowing ball of light, which is the sun. And it's too bright for you to see any of that imprint, but it's like the projector bulb, and you get the surface details on the other side. You get the moon and the stars. You get the moon. You can see the constellations on the surface, and then the surface details are spread all across the sky like a disco ball. This is like works the same way your television set or your gas plasma television set or the old television sets and everything like that. The gas plasma television sets have ionic particles in and they have like magnetic magnetic beams interacting with these ionic particles and turning into visible light. You've got a magnetic stream of the Earth going from south to north. Even when it passes through the poles, which isn't the ionosphere, but you have those. There's a small amount of ionic particles around the poles, but because that's the full force of the magnetic stream, you're getting the visible. That's why you see the southern lights and the northern lights, because it's the magnetic stream of the Earth interacting with those ionic particles and turning it into visible light. And then when it hits the ionosphere that surrounds the Earth, which is a much bigger concentration of ionic particles, this ionosphere that surrounds the whole Earth, God's big video screen in the sky, when the magnetic field of the Earth intercepts that, you get the big giant ball of light, which is the sun, and then the surface details on the other side with the moon and the stars. And this is if you take a flashlight, like not the LED lights, but the old traditional flashlights, and you flash it in your fridge and that kind of flat, kind of white fridge, and put it on an angle and stuff, you can see two balls, one bright and one dim, and you kind of change the angle of that flashlight, and you'll see like you'll see the dimmer ball go from crescent to full to crescent. You put the flashlight point it directly at the fridge, and you'll see the two balls overlap. One will be you see like one black ball with a glowing trim around the edge. That's your solar eclipse. And then as you change the angle of the flashlight in the fridge, you're gonna see the dimmer ball go from crescent to full to crescent. So it's like this lighting effect. When you put it on the wall, sometimes you'll see two little balls of light. The second one will have like a big, like almost like a universe around it. Around the dimmer one, and the lighter one will just be kind of a lighter. But like this is what you see. This is the lighting effect you see in the night sky. Because that magnetic stream that goes from south to north there's a wobble to it, and that's why you get the moon is apparently, that's why you have these cycles of the moon, the full crescent and the full and back to crescent. You get your full moons and your new moons, because this is just the lighting effect with that, as that magnetic beam kind of has a slightly different angle as it hits the ionosphere, and this is what you're going to see as your lighting effect. Like it's like those you see those those plasma balls and stuff like that, that type of thing. So that's what the Earth is actually like. It's like you get a magnetic stream going from south to north, interacting with the ionosphere that surrounds the Earth. God's giant video screen in the sky works the same way as your television set. Magnetic fields interacting with ionic particles and producing lights in the sky. You have when you see like this, there's the sun and the moon and the stars, but you see then there's planets. And people say, well, these planets are on other trajectories in the mainstream. Well, that's because there's the mainstream, the main magnetic beam going from south to north is producing the sun and the moon and the stars, but you have other streams also besides the mainstream. You have all this magnetic field going from south to north, so there's other little streams going from south to north. and they're sort of they're on slightly different trajectories. So that's why you get these what they call planets in the sky, but these are just other magnetic streams going from south to north, and they even they have a little wobble to them, so it even looks like the planets are rotating, but it's just taking an imprint from the Earth, and it wobbles around and comes back to its starting point. So it would look like the planet is actually rotating in the sky, but it's actually just wobbling around and coming back to its starting point as it takes the imprint from the Antarctic region. The beam comes out of the Antarctic region, takes its little wobble, takes its little imprint, and then that magnetic beam intercepts the ionosphere, and that's your planets. That's what they're claiming are planets. Then you have other magnetic streams that go from south to north that miss the ionosphere altogether, but occasionally make contact with it. And that's what they say are comets. You see them every 75 years. They're there all the time. Those magnetic streams are going from south to north, and every 75 years they hit the ionosphere. Otherwise, the times they miss it. So that's what you're seeing. Those are your sun, moon, your stars, your planets, your comets. It's all lights. It's all lights that are produced with the interaction with the magnetic field of the Earth that goes from south to north as it interacts with the ionosphere that surrounds the Earth. All those ionic particles in the ionosphere that surrounds the Earth and blankets the Earth. And this works the same, produces light the same way as your gas plasma TV set. This is what you see in the sky. It's lights. It's all. You can't land on the moon because it's a light, but it looks like a celestial body because it's taken an imprint from the circular region that surrounds Antarctica. And this is why the sun and the moon are the same size. They're exactly the same size. You only see one side of the moon because it's just taking an imprint from the ground. That's why you only see one side of it. Also, you'll see, what they'll say is the center of the Milky Way galaxy in the night sky. They'll say, oh, look, it's the Milky Way center. And it's not the Milky Way center. What you're seeing in there is an imprint of a mountain range in Antarctica. There's an actual mountain range down there, and it takes an imprint of it as it takes an imprint of that whole region. And then you see this up in the sky. You'll see this, what they say is the Milky Way center. It's a mountain range. And then then you'll have these big gas clouds that's up there. They say they're nebulas, and that's where stars are formed. They're not nebulas. They're imprints of nitrous oxide deposits, sediments in the soils, those types of things, gas deposits in the soils. That's what you're seeing. You're just getting an imprint of what's on the Earth as the magnetic field goes from south to north. And the Earth isn't rotating. The sun is going around the Earth. The Earth doesn't rotate. You can, if you take a supersonic jet and go at Mach 3, it doesn't matter. There's no calculation for the rotation of the Earth. If there's like 5 kilometer-hours of wind, there's calculation that can, small amounts of wind will significantly affect your trajectory of your flight. But if you could be going 3 times the speed of sound, going directly from the equator, where you'd have the maximum rotation, up to directly to the North Pole, there'd be no rotation if it was rotating, and there's no calculation for rotation of the Earth. It doesn't matter if if you're taking that supersonic jet at Mach 3, doesn't matter if you're at the equator going east, at the equator going west, or at the equator going north, which would be which would have extreme differences in if the Earth was rotating, but there's no calculation for any rotation of the Earth because it's not rotating. It's the sun, but the sun is orbiting the Earth, and so that's how all that works. That's what you see when you look up at the sky. You're seeing the lights that God put there for signs, and through God's design, and God designed that so the magnetic field that runs from south to north takes an imprint from the Earth. At the circular region around Antarctica. That's the projector slide, that's the projector slide. The sun's the projector bulb, and then the text and the screen's on the other side. The moon and the stars like a disco ball in the sky. You're seeing that imprint, and the sun is just part of the atmosphere. It's just up there. It's a ball of light. It's close. It's small, and it's going to because it's designed so the ionosphere kind of blankets the whole surface, so it kind of actually gives a magnified effect, so it kind of looks, you can still see it at the same size wherever you're located at. And I hope this makes everything crystal clear. That God's showing me how this works. Without there's no holes in the truth. So I hope you come to Jesus and come to repentance, because Jesus is returning to this earth soon to rule and reign for 1,000 years, and God's judgment's coming. So please come to repentance and become born again as a Christian, and don't follow the Antichrist. And thank you very much, and God bless. Wish you all the best.